Yates County and beyond. Welcome back to another episode of Invasive Species Friday. Through this short weekly podcast, we at the Yates CCE hope to bring you information about the invasive species you may see around this county. So let's head back to the ditch with this week's invasive, purple loosestrife. Purple loosestrife is a forb, or herbaceous flowering plant, from Eurasia and northern Africa. Its natural range actually extends from Britain to Japan. It was introduced into North America in a few different ways. Like last week's invasive, the purple loosestrife was accidentally transported in contaminated ballast water in cargo ships. It has also been used as an herbal remedy for dysentery, diarrhea, ulcers, and other digestive issues. Even today, in states where it isn't regulated, the plant is used by horticulturalists as an ornamental or landscape plant and by beekeepers as bee forage. Nicknamed the Purple Plague in some parts of the country, purple loosestrife was well established in New England by the 1830s and is now prevalent through Canada and the United States, except for Hawaii and Florida. This plant can grow in the drier soils of pastures and fields, but prefers marshes, wetlands, stream banks, and ditches. The tissue of the stem actually develops air spaces between its cells, allowing them to breathe even when partially submerged. It is a highly competitive plant and quickly displaces native species when established. The density of the canopy it creates suppresses the growth of the plants underneath. If the purple loosestrife stand becomes monotypic, meaning it has outcompeted or shaded out all other plant species in the area, the density of the infestation may prevent birds, amphibians, turtles, or other aquatic wildlife from moving, nesting, or eating normally. The roots of the plant are dense and woody and often trap sediment, impeding water flow. It's also a prolific seed producer, as a single plant can produce between 2 and 3 million seeds. Those seeds can only survive for 3 or so years, but can establish under standing water. The purple loosestrife seeds are less than 1 millimeter wide and look like dust. They can be carried on the wind or on the water, and seed development begins in late July and continues into the fall. The plant is a perennial, so the stems die back in the late fall with the first frost, but the rootstock goes dormant and survives the winter. In late April, the shoots from the rootstock emerge and the seeds begin to germinate. Seedlings grow quickly, often reaching 3 feet tall and flowering in their first year. Once established, a rootstock can send up dozens of stems every year, and the entire plant can grow up to 7 feet tall. The leaves of the purple loosestrife are lance-shaped with smooth edges, growing up to 4 inches long. They grow in opposite pairs that rotate 90 degrees from the pair below. The woody stem of the plant is kind of unique, as it's a square or hexagon shape. In other words, the stem has typically 4 to 6 distinct sides. It's also very hairy. The flowers of the purple loosestrife grow on spikes that can get up to 1 foot long. Each of the purple flowers typically has 5 to 7 petals and grows in pairs or clusters along the spike. The spike-like flowers of the native steeplebush are similar to the purple loosestrife, but the steeplebush is a shrub with round stems and toothed leaf tips. Fireweed is another native common look-alike, but it also has round stems and the flowers are on stalks. The leaves of the fireweed are also longer and have a distinct midvein. So what can you do to help us control purple loosestrife? If you see it, report it to IMAP Invasives. This plant is hugely underreported in Yates County. In New York, purple loosestrife is a prohibited species, so it's illegal to possess, transport, import, sell, purchase, or introduce this plant. Not all states regulate or prohibit it though, so be careful if you're buying plants online. It is possible for other varieties of loosestrife to crossbreed with the invading variety. This plant is also considered an aquatic invasive, as it can grow in the water, so make sure to look for it when you clean, drain, and dry your water sports gear. Like last week's brittle naiad, if the stems or the roots are fragmented, they can produce new plants, so it's important to remove all remnants of the plant from your boat or other equipment. If you're walking in an area with purple loosestrife, clean off your clothing, gear, and footwear, preferably at a boot brush station, before moving to an uninfested area. For more information on your local boot brush station locations, contact Finger Lakes Prism or your county's Extension Office. If you decide to tackle a small infestation on your property, don't try to mow it because the plant fragments can regrow. If the plant is small, it can be dug up, bagged, and disposed of, but take care to completely remove the root crown. Mature flowering stems can be cut at the base before seed production in late summer and early fall. There are also chemical options available, but those are non-selective and typically unsuitable for large infestations. They also usually require a licensed applicator due to the wetland habitat preferred by the purple loosestrife. The final control method we'd like to discuss is a neat one. In terms of invasive species, biocontrol uses a natural predator of an invasive species to help manage infestations and spread. Though it kind of sounds like using invasives to fight invasives, biological control methods undergo years of research and testing before being used in the field, and even then they are heavily regulated by both state and federal governments. Biocontrol species need to target only the invasive species and not negatively impact the native species or its environment. Sometimes this requires the biocontrol to be augmented, for example to reduce reproduction, in order to mitigate any negative impacts. After all testing is complete, the permits are obtained, and the biocontrol is approved for release, the researchers continue to do follow-up experiments and track its survival and impact on the target species and surrounding environment. For purple loosestrife, there are 2 types of leaf beetles and 2 types of weevils that have been released in the US as biocontrol. While they don't eliminate the plant, they have been effective in controlling infestations. The beetles have been previously released in various parts of New York, including the Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge, Silver Lake State Park, and Letchworth State Park, and other invasive management teams have plans to collect from existing populations and release into new areas, with permits of course. To learn more about biological control methods for various invasive species, and the biocontrol species occurring naturally in your yard, check out the link in the description to visit the New York Integrated Pest Management website. And with that, we reach the end of this week's episode of Invasive Species Friday. Next Friday, we'll be looking at a not-so-heavenly plant that provides a home for an invasive insect flying towards our county. Until then, we at the Yates CCE thank you for tuning in and supporting our fight against invasive species in Yates County.